Jesus, unlike anybody else in history, has the credentials to tell us the truth about the afterlife.
When you explain the resurrection, you tend to talk about these four things.
Yeah, the four areas are: number one, his execution; number two, the early reports that he rose from the dead; number three, the empty tomb; and number four, the eyewitnesses. So the first E is for execution, that Jesus was truly dead after being crucified. And the evidence for this is very powerful. We have no evidence anywhere of anyone ever surviving a full Roman crucifixion. Even the scientific, peer-reviewed, secular Journal of the American Medical Association conducted an investigation into the death of Jesus, and their conclusion was, quote, "Clearly, the weight of the historical and medical evidence indicates that Jesus was dead even before the wound to his side was inflicted." The second E stands for the word early. We have early reports that Jesus rose from the dead. In other words, reports that can be dated back very close to the events themselves. Because I used to think, like a lot of skeptics, that the resurrection was a legend. And I knew it took time for legend to develop in the ancient world. And so I figured 100, 150 years after the death of Jesus, stories were invented, mythologies were spun, and that's where the idea of the resurrection came from. But we have a report of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, including named eyewitnesses and groups of eyewitnesses, that has been dated back by scholars to within months of his execution. That is like a news flash from ancient history. So I don't think you can write it off as just being a legend. The third E stands for they're empty. We have an empty tomb. And the strongest evidence for this is that even the opponents of Jesus implicitly admitted the tomb was empty. There was nobody in the first century claiming that, no, the body is still there. Even the opponents of Jesus said, oh, well, the disciples stole the body. They were conceding the tomb is empty. They're trying to explain how it got empty. And yet the disciples didn't have the motive, the means, or the opportunity to steal the body. And then finally, the fourth E stands for eyewitnesses. As I said, most of what we know from ancient history are facts based on one or maybe two sources. And yet, for the conviction of the disciples that they encountered the resurrected Jesus, we have no fewer than 9 ancient sources, inside and outside the New Testament, confirming and corroborating the conviction of the disciples that they encountered the risen Christ.